All right, good evening, everyone. We appreciate you tuning in for this public information session on the Town of Windsor's 2022 Small Cities CDBG grant application. Small City CDBG, it's called Community Development Block Grant. And essentially that is federal money coming from the Department of Housing, Federal Department of Housing. It gets passed through the state of Connecticut to local communities of less than 50,000. However, those communities less than 50,000 have to apply each year. Communities above 50,000 automatically get an allocation of these federal funds. So each year we go through and determine priorities, and on occasion we'll make an application to what is the State Department of Housing for small cities funds. So I'm here, Patrick McMahon from the Economic Development Department. I'm here with Flavia Castro, who is the Community Development Coordinator for the community. And we're going to do a slide presentation, and then we will open it up for any questions from the audience. Next slide. I will say that we are in preparation for submitting an application. There will be a formal public hearing prior to the actual application, which is currently slated for Monday, May 16th, before the town council. So tonight's we're really just trying to give some background into what the program is all about, and then solicit your feedback. Our agenda is really just to go through what the program is, its eligibility. We are going to be proposing an application for our town's housing rehabilitation program that Flavia will run through. We're going to talk about something called program income. Through our housing rehab program, we provide loans, and it does that when people pay back the loans, we have the opportunity to reutilize those funds. That's called program income. And then again, we'll open it up for comment. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the question and answer box, and we will proceed. Next slide. All right, what is Connecticut Small City CDBG program? As I said, it's federal funds passed through the state of Connecticut to local governments, and in this case, it's on a competitive basis. It's to support community development activities and build stronger and more resilient communities. The funding is meant to help communities that are low and moderate income. For this year, 2022, it is expected, we're not certain what the actual final amount will be for the state's allocation of CDBG funds, but they were anticipating about $11 million from HUD, and they have some priorities that they'd like to utilize the funding for. One is public housing modernization in support of what's called the state-sponsored housing portfolio. That's one area. Housing rehabilitation, which we'll get into a little later. And then infrastructure projects like water and sewer, streets, or community centers. Again, that would focus in on assisting low and moderate income individuals. Next slide. In order to make an application to Small City CDBG, the proposed programs must meet one of the following national objectives. And we're going to go through each of these in point. The first is to benefit low and moderate income households. Second, to aid in the prevention and or elimination of slum or blight. And three, to alleviate existing conditions that pose a serious and immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community, what's called urgent need. So next slide. When it comes to low and moderate income benefit, there are certain ways to qualify under this heading. One would be an area-wide benefit. And this applies a lot to street and sidewalk projects where at least 51% of the population in the defined area is of low and moderate income. At one point, there was in the past for the state small cities program, more of a focus on helping the public infrastructure. So for many years, we were in the Wilson neighborhood because it applied under this particular aspect. We were able to get some road reconstruction projects completed utilizing CDBG. So that's the type of thing, a whole area, a whole neighborhood that could qualify under low and moderate income. Another area is limited clientele, and that is essentially certain populations that are basically assumed to be low and moderate income. And the groups in that category are generally seniors or handicapped persons. A third way to qualify under low and moderate income is what's called direct benefit. And that is really you're assisting a low and moderate income household, family, or business. Our housing rehab program is an example of this direct benefit. The actual property owner has to be low and moderate income, or the landlord who works with units that are rented to low and moderate income. In the past, there has also been a sort of a category to help in economic development projects, where you had to really demonstrate that the grant that's provided to a business is ultimately going to result in job creation or retention of low and moderate income individuals. Many years ago, we were able to assist the Windsor Shopping Center on a facade project, and we had to demonstrate that there was going to be jobs that were created in some of the vacant spaces that had existed in that spot at that time. I'm going to go back up to low and moderate income households just really briefly, just to give you an example of what that would be. And the definition, there's really two categories, low and moderate. The moderate category is households whose total income is at or below 80% of the area median income. And in 2021, 80% of area median income. And by AMI, they're really looking at the Hartford, West Hartford area of our state. And for a household of one, 80% of the AMI would be $58,408. For a household of two, $66,752. A household of three would be $75,096. And a household of four was $83,440. Just to give you a sort of a sense of who would qualify under that direct benefit low and moderate income. Next slide. Again, there's another category, which is the elimination of slum and blight, prevention or elimination of an area basis, something that's affecting the whole neighborhood, or prevention or elimination on a spot slum and blight basis. The area basis, it must meet state or local definition as blighted. At least 25% of the properties in the area are experiencing one or more of the following: physical deterioration of buildings, abandonment of properties, chronic high occupancy turnover rates, or chronic high vacancy rates in commercial industrial buildings, significant declines or abnormally low property values, and known or suspected environmental contamination. I'd venture to say that there's no current location in Windsor that would likely satisfy that sort of area basis, but that is a criteria that could be out there. A spot determination is a specific location with conditions of blight, physical decay, or environmental contamination. And in these areas of slum and blight, some of the eligible activities could be acquisition, clearance, demolition, relocation, historic preservation, and remediation. Next slide. Then the last category of national significance would be urgent need. And that's a sudden and unexpected need, a threat to the health and welfare of the community. It's occurred within the last 18 months and no other funds may be available. Could be a natural or man-made disaster that causes real threats to health or safety. A hurricane came through and really obliterated an area. You might be able to tap into CDBG funds for that. Say that there was a commercial building, industrial building, had ammonia in it, exploded and caused damage in the surrounding area. That could potentially be something where you could demonstrate an urgent need for CDBG. It's very infrequent that I've seen in the state of Connecticut that communities have been able to secure funding through small cities for either the slum and blight or the urgent need. But again, the possibility does exist, so we certainly want to mention it. Over the years, some of the major activity categories for CDBG has been acquisition of real property, public facilities and improvements, relocation, economic development activities, homeownership assistance, planning and capacity building, program administrative costs, and housing. I know, for instance, just many years ago, we did have a youth activity in the Wilson neighborhood that was covered through CDBG. But again, our focus over the last several years has really been on a very successful and ongoing housing rehabilitation program. The activities that are currently next slide, currently funded by DOH, I think I've already mentioned public housing modernization in support of the state-sponsored housing portfolio. Essentially, that would be enhancements to properties likely run by the Windsor Housing Authority, whether that was Millbrook or Shad Run or something along those lines. Housing rehabilitation, which we'll get into a little bit more. And then infrastructure, which would be stuff like storm drainage and sidewalks. That's what the state is expecting this year for applications. I haven't seen the caps on any particular grant application, like the amount up to which a grant can be submitted. But we're kind of relying on some past practices to come up with what we believe would be a successful and competitive grant application this year. So I'm going to pass it over to Flavia, who's going to talk to you about our housing rehabilitation program.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you for attending. So just briefly, what the housing rehab program is, what the goals are. So the intent of the program is to preserve the town's housing stock and to help provide decent and safe housing for low and moderate income residents, improve energy efficiency, and encourage neighborhood reinvestments. So some of the program requirements, and just mentioning about eligibility, is again emphasizing the low to moderate income. So we help low and moderate income residents. What we provide are low interest loans. So for homeowners that actually live in the house that they're seeking for help, that's 0% interest loans. For investors, typically our landlords that do not live in that property, it's a 1% interest loan. The priorities for the program are health, safety, and code compliance. And the caps that we have for a single family home is $35,000. For 2 units is $70,000. And we serve up to 3 units, and that would be $100,000. There is requirements of this program, and is to make all homes that where we go that are eligible for this would be lead safety, to make homes lead safe. So this would be for homes that are older, so built in 1978 or prior to that. We also, on checking for eligibility, there's a loan to value requirement. So we look at the equity of the homeowner. So here there's a little bit of the steps that we follow in the housing rehab program. We currently have a waiting list. We have around a little over 20 people on the waiting list currently. And just to give you an idea, a sense, you know, on a given year, well, I'll mention that a little bit later. Let me go back to the slide here. So the first thing we do is we have a preliminary application. So we ask for the homeowner to complete this preliminary application and provide necessary documents just to make sure that the homeowner would be eligible for the program. At this point, you know, we confirm once we get the documents and we review the application, we either confirm or deny the eligibility to the program. Like I say, at this point, you know, it's really important to do this because, you know, we have a waiting list of, you know, over a year, and we don't want anyone to, you know, just sit on the waiting list to then find out that they don't qualify. So when the application gets to the top of the list, we reach out to the homeowner or the applicant, and that's when we get the large, like all the documents that were required. So at the preliminary stage, we request fewer documents, but when we're ready to move forward with the project, we ask, you know, like for mortgage statements, bank accounts, so a little bit more at this stage. And so again, we qualify the homeowner. And so after the homeowner is qualified, basically the homeowner in the application, we know what improvements they want to make in their homes. So we bring out an inspector, a rehab inspector. And so the inspector goes to the house and does like a very thorough inspection of the house, and has in mind what the homeowner wants to do, but is keeping an eye out for things that might be health and safety hazards, and also things that might be recommendations to the homeowner of, you know, possible upgrades. So then, depending on the age of the home, there is a lead inspection. And so again, the goal of the program is not to eliminate lead, but rather to make homes lead safe. And so with this inspection, what we're doing is we're trying to figure out where there is lead in the house at high elevated levels, but also where lead paint is in an unsafe state. So a report gets generated with that information, and really those two reports inform a third document that gets created by the town. That's basically a document that serves to look for contractors. And so in that document, we specify the work to be done, but also the methods that need to be followed by the contractors to make sure that the work is being done in a safe manner. Prior to that, I'm skipping one step. Obviously, none of this happens without the homeowner's approval. So the rehab inspector provides the scope of work, which is the proposed work, that gets approved to the homeowner, with a cost estimate. But being mindful that really we want to know how much the project will cost until we receive bids from contractors. And so with that document that the town generates, we look for contractors, and we fund the contractor or we select the contractor that gives us the lowest bid, that has all the licenses and credentials that the town and the state require for contractors to be under this program. So at this stage, the homeowner signs a rehab contract. The contract is between the contractor and the homeowner, and then a mortgage with the town, depending on where the income of the homeowner lies. We have different loan terms. So we have a deferred payment loan, which is a 15-year loan. And then we also have an amortized loan, which is your regular monthly payment loan. That also is a 15-year loan. Those get recorded at the land records. And then basically contract starts, or the construction starts. Throughout the construction process, our rehab inspector will be there to help the homeowner navigate the construction process and basically guide the homeowner on what repairs are happening. Then last but not least, once the project is completed, the town will pay the contractor, but not without prior, making sure that if it's required that all building inspections have been passed, that there are lien waivers, and the final payment is done with the approval of the homeowner as well. So typically projects take some time. And so that's why, we do, as you see on this slide, we have an average of 7 active projects. That's what happened in 2020 and 2021. I'd say, whenever I talk to someone that calls to be on the waiting list, I typically say that we do 7 to 8 projects a year. That way, they get a sense on how much of a waiting time they might have. Now, in the last couple of years, I noticed that the average cost per project has really increased, and to some degree that has to do with the cost of construction materials. So projects are getting a little bit lengthier too, but so there's some, there are demands. We don't promote this program because of our waiting list, and still we get a number of phone calls asking for services. And so what the office typically does when something like this happens is we're very knowledgeable of other services and other organizations that are providing similar services to homeowners. And so whenever it's appropriate, depending on the type of work that homeowners request, they get referred to other organizations, or we provide them with contact information for other organizations. So this slide, is showing really since 1979 to 2020. So, that just gives you an idea of the geographic distribution of our projects and what we've done in the past. So for 2022, for the grants, what we're hoping to propose is basically we're hoping for $400,000 to be spent over the course of 2 years. Out of that, 20% will go to project costs or administration. So that means, staff work here in the office, but also mainly the inspectors that do the work as well. For loans, that's $320,000. Program income. So that's how we've been running the program for the past few years. So as I say, what we have are loans. They're not grants. And so whenever we get paid, that money goes straight to that account that basically we use to give new loans. I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to add about that.
Yeah, I would just mention that, our current projection is that the program income would be able to sustain the program for a number of months, maybe up to a year, but then without a heavier volume of repayments, then we wouldn't be able to continue at the same clip that we are. So what we're really essentially doing is asking for the state to recapitalize the loan program so that we can get more projects done and ensure the continued viability of the program.
So currently, or as of December 31st of 2021, what we had for program income for the housing rehab program, we had $177,334. It seems like a lot of money, but once you divide it in, your $34,000, $35,000 per project is not that much. And so we're projecting to the future, seeing how long it's going to take for us to get those funds in our hands to be able to provide new loans, and we see that there is a need to get funds from the state.
We do have some program income from our past economic development projects, like the facade program at the Windsor Shopping Center, and there's also another project that was done for remediation. So those funds we do have. We are contemplating the possibility of trying to reprogram them to the housing rehab program, but that's where it stands today.
Mm-hmm.
Flavia, we'll go to some of the questions, but I thought that one thing that folks might be interested in is what are some of the typical things that are done to the homes through the housing rehab program. What are the typical jobs?
There's a range of things that the program does. So I'll give you an example of what we're looking at now. Well, the large majority, I would say, are window replacements. We do roofs, we do siding, we do doors, the health and safety items, are like maybe stairs that don't have railings, or stairs that are not in good condition, or porches that have water damage and therefore not in good condition or not safe. We've seen a lot of demand for flooded basements and mold remediation. So then you're talking about sump pumps and gutters and a little bit of where the water is going. So I think the beauty of the program is that the inspector is there to provide the homeowner with guidance on on how they better spend their money. So
Electrical upgrades?
Electrical upgrades for sure. Smoke detectors, that's 100% of the times homeowners are not anticipating it, and it's something that does get added to the project.
So we're going to open it up to questions.
How do we see? Here? This one?
The other one, I think.
It's not doing anything.
It's stop share.
There we go. So we see there are a couple of attendees. I don't know if any of you have any questions. If so, I don't know if you know, like, if you can please raise your hand. There we go. You mean when you're asking what are the rates on the loans, you mean interest rates? So depending, so if a home is, depending on where the household income lies. Well, let me backtrack. So if it's a homeowner that lives in the house, it's 0% interest loans. If it's a landlord that lives, let's say it's a 2-unit, and the landlord lives in the first unit, then it's a 0% interest loan. If it's a landlord that does not live in the unit and has, you know, a separate building, that's a 1% interest loan. All of our loans are for 15 years. And as far as the payment types for, this is not for investors, right? Only for homeowners that live in their house. We have the choices, or depending on where the income lies, to do an amortized loan, which is managed by Windsor Federal Savings, and that's like the regular loan. There's no interest to it, but if the homeowner makes a late payment, you know, there's a late payment fee. And then we have the deferred payment loan, and that's for folks that are, and again, this is for the household, not just the individual that applies. Is the household income has to be below 60% AMI. And I should apologize because that's a figure that I didn't put together, or I don't have on the top of my mind, but typically who I see applying for or qualifying for these types of loans are folks that are retired or have some sort of disability. But anyway, so these are loans that basically we sign a mortgage and the loan just sits there. Right, and so what triggers the pay, and it has a maturity date of 15 years from when the mortgage was signed. And what triggers the payment is when the property changes hands. So this can happen whenever, of course, when the homeowner sells the house, or when the homeowner passes and then the house goes to the next person. And so if the person is, you know, if the 15 years come and the maturity date passes, then, you know, typically the housing, the community development office touches base with the homeowner to see again where their income is at that point. And depending on where their income is, either they transition to do an amortized loan, or we defer the loan for another 15 years. Did I answer your question? Okay, great.
All right, is there any other questions? We've got a couple people in the audience.
No question.
So Flavia, you want to, how can folks get more information if they're interested?
So I'd say the easiest way would be to contact me on the phone. So my direct line is 860-285-1985. But also I would encourage you to go to the community development page on our website. So basically on our page, you will find attachments for the application form, but also for the guidelines. And so in the guidelines are key because they show all the process. And like I was saying, the program is a little bit lengthy and there's so many steps to go through that it's a great program, but it's not for everybody. So we always encourage the homeowners to be well informed of what's going or how the program runs before they, before they give us an application.
Okay, before we close this public info session, are there again one last opportunity for questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we thank you for participating and please reach out to us if you have additional questions. Have a great night.
Thank you.